Hello everybody and welcome to the Omni Stage at Event Tech Live 2021. I'm delighted to say that our next speaker is ready for our next session and our first session on the Omni Stage this year. Janet Greco is the founder and principal consultant at Broadcast Projects and joins us to look at event tech, Extinction engine or salvation for mega trade shows. Janet, we're delighted to have you here today. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
I can.
Fantastic. I'll hand things over to you and I'll see you in a short while for some questions from our audience.
Many thanks. Hello there. I'm Janet Greco from Broadcast Projects, and I'd like to start with a question today. Will our grandkids think that we were completely nuts? We'll tell them that back in the olden days, we'd get on a plane to fly far away, schlep our luggage to a hotel, make a mad dash to get to our mega industry trade show, run around frantically for several days, miss out on most of the exhibits we were supposed to see, not meet even a fraction of the other 60 or 100,000 people also there, and then we'd go home exhausted, believing we had accomplished our business goals. But hey, we would mostly have had a great time and ended up with a big fat stack of business cards to show for it. I don't know. Is it the way of the future? Today I'm here to talk to you about trade shows, and I can categorically say that after experiencing the expanded possibilities made possible by event tech, I believe there's no turning back. We all know that things have moved on, and so it's a real pleasure to be speaking today at Event Tech Live. In my talk today, I'm going to be looking at the key considerations for combining event tech with the trade show experience and how event tech can be harnessed to make the trade show experience even better. But first, let me introduce myself and tell you a little bit about me. I guess the first thing you need to know is that I'm totally new to the event tech industry, and until a few months ago, I had no idea that an event tech event like this even existed. In fact, I started investigating this world only last summer. My professional background is in the area of TV metadata, or the information of TV programs, the data, that drives your on-screen TV guide or streaming experience. And so working in the TV business, obviously, our major trade shows disappeared, as many trade shows did for many business sectors worldwide. Early in the pandemic, I started tracking all of the TV business-oriented webinars that soon started to crop up, and I began to update and distribute an industry calendar of events. By summer, it became clear that there were already too many of them, and by October, I was logging over 130 webinars per month, thinking that even if only 10 of them were any good, there was no time to attend them all, and on top of that, none of them offered any form of interaction. So I was looking for something more geared towards driving connections through networking and through conversation. That led me on a journey to discover event tech, and that's pretty much what brought me here today. So all this very much reminds me of a time just over 30 years ago when I spent my days standing over a fax machine, sending TV listings to TV Guide magazines all over Europe. Back then, when I was working at one of the very first pan-European TV stations, in those days, that's just how we did things. I licked a lot of envelopes, and those envelopes went all over Europe so that TV editors could retype all over again the program information I had just mailed to them so that they could publish that information in their TV magazines and newspapers. Being here today reminds me of back then, because when I had the idea to launch a pan-European TV listing service, digitizing the entire process, not only was I ahead of my time, but people also thought I was completely nuts. I should hasten to add that this was well before the widespread use of email and the World Wide Web. And at that time, in my quest to find business partners, I ended up at a big trade show at Olympia in London, the name of which is totally lost to me, but it was an IT show of sorts, dedicated to the library sciences. And there I realized quite inadvertently that what I was trying to set up was called an online service. Indeed, that was the business I was trying to create, but that terminology was very new to me, as was the word metadata, which was the principal topic that my business would ultimately address. Pretty much something similar happened to me along the way to Event Tech Live. 30 years on, I'm still in the TV business, and 30 years on, I still go to trade shows. In the TV industry, there are 2 mega events that happen twice a year. No sooner does one finish that you start planning for the next one, and I'm sure it's the same for many other industries. Our main show, NAB, takes place in April with more than 100,000 attendees, and that one's in Las Vegas. The other, IBC, is held in September in Amsterdam with more than 60,000 attendees. There are many other big shows, but these are the 2 big kahunas. And the last time I attended either of them was in 2019, which feels like a really, really long time ago. So early in the pandemic, all of us were scrambling, trying to figure out how we would compensate and still do business. And it was logical that we all turned to webinars. Incredibly, Zoom became a verb. And after 6 months of tracking all these virtual events, not only was it clear to me that there were too many of them, but they were of varying quality too. And critically, there was no opportunity whatsoever for conversation or networking. So with this question mark over how long the pandemic would last and when it would be really safe to travel again, I had been thinking hard about whether event tech could be harnessed to improve the mechanisms of interaction amongst attendees and businesses. We all know that trade shows serve as the engine for many business sectors, but right now, mostly, we don't have them. And those that are coming back have a lot of restrictions. Travel is more complicated nowadays too, and maybe won't be so fashionable anymore in the face of our climate crisis. And so new things have cropped up, new ways of doing things, such as the series I launched last October called Media Meet and Greet. We've had 4 events so far, and our next one is in just 2 days from now. Let me first tell you some of the experiences I had in terms of setting up the event, and then I'll tell you something about the lessons I've learned so far. First of all, most obviously, everyone quickly got sick of webinars, and trade shows felt like a distant memory. Late last summer, I began investigating a vast number of event tech platforms, and that was how Media Meet and Greet was born. The truth is that there are many platforms out there to choose from, and you could pretty much pick any one of them. But I think the difference comes in terms of who's doing the driving, how they are conceptualized, promoted, and deployed. So after evaluating many platforms, I took an early decision to use the Deal Room Events platform, as it's well known in the startup world for its value at pitching events, and it also had an excellent reputation as a hybrid platform that would be capable of supporting both physical and virtual conferences. And it looks really nice too, and nowadays there's even a new interface which we'll be using at our next event in 2 days from now. In planning for the first Media Meet and Greet event, that started at the beginning of September last year, and I had originally wanted to create an event that would serve as a surrogate for the annual famous Friday night IBC party. And deliberately, I didn't want a webinar format, but mainly I wanted to facilitate networking. What was really important to me also was how the so-called relevance matching algorithm was going to be put to work. And that meant drawing on my experience with metadata. I mean, it seems almost obvious, but motivating your audience to participate is key. These days, there are a lot of virtual networking offers, but they are usually an afterthought or a nice-to-have feature tacked on by many traditional conference producers without much regard for how this feature can be set up to work well. If you think of your typical trade show, You simply do not know who else is attending in advance because the organizers don't make this information available to you. So you turn up and you hope you'll bump into interesting people. Yes, it may be fun to hook up with new contacts that way, but frankly, it's highly inefficient. So with Deal Room, we have this very clear offer and seek mechanism, which is at the heart of the relevance matching algorithm. And then to help that algorithm, as we all know, algorithms are driven by data and work best when powered by clean data. We properly formulated a few onboarding questions and categories that were highly relevant to our industry. With this approach, we were able to appropriately match attendees so that they could forge genuinely useful connections. In terms of setting up the event, there are indeed many factors, and I can definitely say it was a bit of a dance to get all these elements working in sync so that it was possible to produce a successful event. And then, of course, we knew that getting people to sign up to an empty platform would be a pretty big challenge. So initially, we asked about 10 VIPs to help personally spread the word. And what we originally thought was a good idea actually turned out to have very little success. We measured signups by giving each VIP their own landing page to share with their network. And using landing pages to attract attendees meant that the subscribers' data landed directly in our internal email marketing system. Once confirmed, they were immediately redirected to create an account on the Deal Room events platform. What we learned was that by publishing a direct link instead to the Deal Room events platform actually served us better. Though it somewhat compromised our CRM workflow, the workarounds were really easy enough. We also found that landing pages, and later when we added ticketing systems, added a risky element. By removing this step from the sign-up process, it made it less hassle for attendees to join. It absolutely increased the chance that they'd log in, and especially if you want their cooperation and their tolerance to completely fill in their profile. You don't want to ask multiple times for the same information. And even though Deal Room mandates this process just once, retaining the profile settings for future events, unfortunately, most people really don't get that. And there's just too many things to learn with a new platform, any new platform. We also forged a number of digital media partnerships with major players like trade publications who helped us with credibility and visibility. We had good coverage in the trade press, and they helped us spread the word via banners, emails, and newsletters. But ultimately, we found that the most signups came from our own outreach activities. And this is what our numbers looked like for the very first event. It was a very modest event, but 60% of the people reported having found us due to someone having told me about it, and 40% saw a LinkedIn post. We also had a high ratio of attendance to signups too at 77%. So about the learning curve, there are actually a lot of things that people have to understand about your event, and it is not obvious or familiar to them. We let people know that they could browse and set up meetings lasting 20 minutes in advance of the actual event, and we told them that they had to complete their profile. There was indeed some initial confusion about this, as when you say a live event is on a specific date, people don't easily understand that they can log in ahead of time to set up meetings. Also, for the community building aspect, the retention of profiles and the fact that Deal Room offers an archive of past events, again, this is mostly lost on people. It is really like a little community, but people don't completely get it in the first instance. And after the event, people can still chat with each other, and this access serves as a permanent event archive. Even better, for future events, the attendee profiles are already set up. For attendee metadata, we deliberately kept the participant type choices to a bare minimum. At our first event, we had an overabundance of TV technology vendors and consultants, what we would call sellers in our business, but a much lower number of TV service operators, which we would consider to be the buyers. For success at a networking event, you have to really assure a good mixture of both. Otherwise, there's no reason for people to want to meet each other. And for us, this mix has indeed improved in our subsequent events. So what are the key considerations and questions to ask as we consider event tech for trade shows? These are the ones I think are the most important for anyone new to this world. Number one, decide what you need your event platform to do well and what you are truly prepared to deliver. I mean, it seems obvious, but you would not choose Zoom if you wanted to produce a networking event. If you're after a more hybrid experience, say mixing conference sessions that would be recorded with interactive group discussion in multiple streams plus networking, then you're instantly in the realm of hundreds of choices of event tech platforms. But I stress, I think you need to decide what you need your event platform to do well and what you want to deliver well to your audience too. You could ask yourself the question, what do I stake my reputation on? I say this because many platforms offer the Earth, the Moon, and the stars. And in turn, I see organizers offering the same, but then falling down on items that really, in their mind, were nice to have extra features, but which they really had no intention of it ever being a strong part of their offering. The example I would give is a conference producer offering a networking feature because they bought into a platform offering it, but they did not really promote it. It didn't work very well. It probably wasn't completely set up properly, and probably few people participated, more or less. It was, in the end, really an afterthought to the main purpose of the event. In this case, when a conference program has a really strong program and the networking was not so much the main part of things. Number two, decide which platform you want to spend all your time learning. I am sure that many event tech offerings promise easy onboarding and ease of use, especially getting set up to run an event, but I really doubt that any of them are so straightforward. At the end of the day, you basically have to learn every iota of the functionality in order to set up the event properly and avoid colossal fails in terms of messaging, how the notifications work, and all the associated elements, the graphics you need, etc., that go into producing a good virtual event experience. In my case, I chose Deal Room together with the Tito ticketing system and connected the latter with my CRM using Zapier, which leads me to the third point I want to make here. Will you be talking with humans when you run into a problem? I think that this is the most critical element because online support systems are not all created equal. We all know that in the main, you're likely to have to fend for yourself if no success partnership model is part of the deal. This is where, for me, Deal Room Events has outperformed. The main difference is the success management feature, where they consider themselves more my partners and advisors. They've advised me on many aspects of the platform, from technical matters to more strategic ones in terms of marketing, event structure, and so on. I also had the same good experience with Tito as a ticketing system, and their team is at the ready to answer questions. With both partners, you really never feel like you're going to be left alone to drown and get stuck. And so with these thoughts in mind, what are the key considerations for combining event tech with the trade show experience? And how can event tech be harnessed to make the trade show experience even better? As I started this talk, the key item in my mind was trade shows. Yes, they're fun, but are they really efficient? Now that we've been working from home for more than a year, when they come back again, will trade shows really return with the same force that they once had? Will they come back again immediately? Of course not. They're coming back slowly. And What will it be like when things begin to open up again? With social distancing rules, mandated one-way corridors, people having to wear masks, limited hospitality areas. My wonder is whether we will really enjoy it so much. In my heart of hearts, I think that the experience will be a bit sad and complex. Already in our business, one of our big shows that was slated to come back in September has now been pushed back to December. But I think there's a bright silver lining here, and that is what we are learning from the matching process in our networking event. And I would venture to say that this element could revolutionize how we do trade shows going forward. Number one, serendipity. One of the most lamented themes due to the absence of physical trade shows is the absence of the so-called serendipity factor. That chance meeting when you bump into someone and they're completely unknown to you, you strike up a conversation and voila, a deal is born. Well, serendipity is really nice when it happens, but it's a pretty imprecise science. Number two, big crowds. When we attend a major trade show, we usually arrive armed with a list of people and companies we already know we want to meet. But pinpointing new connections is left to chance. Despite the list of companies you'll get in the event guide that perhaps offers some keywords but never gives you a full list of attendees or accurate matching data. Big trade show organizers collect lots of data for their own business purposes. The needs of attendees are not so much catered for, at least in my experience, and many in my industry have said the same. When you're asked, what sectors are you interested in, it's not the same as letting people know who you are and what you're actually interested in buying. So it's nice to be at a big trade show, but how do you find anyone new? How do you know what they offer, what they seek, and in turn, how does anyone also know the same about you? Number three. It goes without saying that trade shows have become huge over the years and that they have had a very established real estate model for conducting their business. Often, the buildup and breakdown of these huge stands is an undertaking even bigger than the actual event. Typically, you're meant to judge the most influential players at these shows by who has the biggest and glitziest stand. Well, stands are great and make it blindingly obvious who has the most money. But what is the virtual equivalent of a venue in the new world? I would argue that having accurate metadata available about the people and companies that can drive connections, whether the event is virtual, physical, or hybrid, is going to make all the difference to the trade show experience moving forward. It is a key area of untapped potential from my perspective. So instead of hoping for serendipity, what we should be thinking about instead is enhanced serendipity. And that enhancement comes about from being able to well match attendees to their most relevant counterparts. Instead of getting lost in big crowds, we should be looking at ways to shrink the audience in terms of relevant connections. Let's let people find each other efficiently. And instead of gauging influence based on the biggest stand and largest marketing budget, well, that's probably not going to change. We can't fix everything with event tech. But it's true, even those big companies known for their mega stands are now questioning the efficiency of the shows, especially now that they have had 18 months to get used to virtual platforms. So in my view, it's really not about the event tech platform. It's more about the event design. And even then, there's no science to it. First of all, people have got to manage the learning curve. And the more that event organizers can do to facilitate that learning, all the better. In networking events, and when a relevance matching algorithm is present, it's best to ensure that you cajole people to the extent possible to fill out their profile properly and increase their chances of making relevant connections. That will help them get the most out of attending the event. And this is the key element I believe can transform trade shows in the future into being genuinely more useful for their attendees. My own experience has not been without its challenges. though virtual event design can be fully horizontal in the sense of multiple simultaneous sessions. Like any major physical trade show or conference in the virtual world, this is just not easily understood. There is a natural inclination, I think, for people to fixate on a specific date and time and turn up and ignore just on the specific date and ignore all exhortations to get onto the platform ahead of time. And they usually arrive and not realize that they could have done much more in terms of setting up their meetings and agenda in advance. So when you have multiple dimensions, okay, sure. So, and there's a natural inclination for people to fixate on a specific date and time. So I fully believe that event tech offers a path to salvation for mega trade shows, but they will have to embrace the challenges that have been thrust upon them and do something creative and positive with what has happened to our world in these last 18 months. I wonder whether our grandkids will ask us why, if we just wanted to do business, we just didn't nominate a different city each month and go there to gather, why we didn't use a recommendation algorithm to engineer the serendipity that we were so sadly missing when everything AI was so up and coming at the time, why the need for a booth and a physical trading floor when you could have gotten all that done in advance. Unfortunately, nothing will get us back to our trade shows anytime soon, and we are now settling in for the long run. Things have a habit of looking old to us very quickly. Like the days when we typed, faxed, and snail-mailed TV listings, embracing the creative use of event tech will point to new directions in how trade shows and conferences are conducted. Please join us at the next event and feel free to contact me.
As Janet Greco, founder and principal consultant at Broadcast Projects there, looking at event tech, Extinction Engine or Salvation for mega trade shows. And we'll be back on the Omni stage very, very soon.